Dan, 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 Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that how you're introing? Because that's just kind of how we feel about this recipe.
yeah. That's the energy I've left after this. Hey everybody, welcome to the Hot and Hotter podcast. I'm Arti.
And I'm Dan.
Every episode, I give Dan a recipe, and we find out if it's
A success,
or a disaster.
nevertheless, it's bound to be an adventure. Let's get to cooking. Okay, well, I think, first of all, because it sounds like we both, just judging by the initial body language, it sounds like we both struggled with this one.
Yup.
Before we get too far, why don't you explain what we were attempting to do with this specific recipe?
So, what we were attempting to make is a hot dog, a sausage, a meat tube product. Sounds easy, doesn't it? Sounds super easy. And me being the smarty guy was like, no, I'm gonna try and make the recipe so anybody can do it with easily obtainable items. If we cussed on this podcast, that's where a lot of bombs would be dropped. I'm telling you. I'm telling
Yeah,
you.
we should preface that because we had tubular meat. There's a lot of joke possibilities and innuendos, and couple that with the frustration we had. So this might not be the best PG episode to enter on if you're a first time listener.
No, it's not gonna be. It's just not gonna be.
Okay. All
All
right.
right.
Well, then you said we did hot dogs.
Yes.
Now, your initial approach to this was Happy Birthday America, 4th of July is coming up. You were in the mindset of a common barbecue or get together kind of summer food.
Yeah. Yep.
And I kind of like how you could have done burgers. Burgers is kind of like a softball slow pitch to you. That could have been a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But then you kind of, to throw in the spice of the show of making things challenging or unique,
Mm-hmm.
you went the
Mm-hmm.
route of hot dogs. So I do appreciate the energy you put into the thought. Everything after that, I hate hot dogs. They are
Mm.
there there's a reason. There's a reason that I don't make them because we'll get into that. Anyway, so hot dogs. Do you have any history for us on
I
hot dogs? I'm kind of curious
do.
about this.
I do. I do have
Okay.
a history of hot dogs. So technically, hot dogs go back to like the 7th century.
Oh,
There's not a lot of documentation about them because they're technically a sausage. So that's more like
okay.
saying sausage goes back that far because a hot dog is a sausage. The hot dog as we know it began in 1498 in Frankfurt, Germany. And that's the claim of where this whole hot dog sausage thing began.
Okay.
Hence the reason it's called Frankfurter, because
Yes.
from Frankfurt. Fast forward to the 19th century, there is a lot of Europeans immigrating to America, and one of those groups are Germans. And what do they bring with them? Sausages.
Okay.
So what they do is they start making hot dog stands because for them, it's a low cost business that they can just start up and start making money on. Because being immigrants, hard to find jobs. So hey, they know something, they're going to use that something to make it into a business.
Okay.
So that starts to kind of blossom and permeate America because of these Germans coming in. Now, it gets a little what would I say? So it gets a little lost at this point where like the idea of the hot dog with the bun comes from. It's kind of all
Oh,
over the place. There's no nailed down person who started the hot dog. Put the in the bun with the ketchup and the mustard, the hot dog.
Okay.
The the closest thing that people believe is that it's originated from Coney Island.
I was thinking that because that's a very popular hot dog established, I guess. Is Coney the brand, or is it just like the area, or like how does that work
Coney
exactly?
Island is the area.
Okay.
But then everyone knows about what a Coney dog is and stuff. So I mean that's
Sure.
because the amusement park and all that jazz. But around 1867, I think it's Charles Feltman opened what may have been the first hot dog cart on Coney Island. So that means dog, bun, ketchup, mustard, the whole shebang.
Sure.
So that's hot dogs. They came from
Yeah.
sausage. They came from another country, as most American food does. Um,
Yeah.
and it's legitimately a self-made immigrant business story.
Yeah.
So it's
Well, I mean,
pretty cool.
that makes a that makes a lot of sense. And when it comes to like sausage in general, first and foremost, what is exactly in a hot dog? Because I don't want to say urban legend is that
Uh-huh.
like your hot dogs you pick up from like the packs up at the store, not sausages, but
Mhm.
just the hot dogs, the paler colored wieners.
Yeah,
They are more of like a conglomerate of different waste products
they're
or
just
like excess stuff,
they're just parts.
just parts,
They're
like
just
what's
parts.
left over from other stuff.
Yeah, so once,
Okay.
a pig or cow or both are butchered depending on the hot dog you get or the sausage you get. So once
Hmm.
they take off all the good stuff, what's left is what goes into the hot dog.
Okay. Well, that
So
almost sounds like some company was thinking ahead and like, hey, we got all this excess stuff. Let's see if we can't, slap this into something, turn it on, make it something really cheap and affordable.
yeah,
It's not the most nutritious thing, and it's probably
mhm,
not, the most wholesome food you could eat, but
yeah. I
it's
mean,
cheap and easy.
if you get a decent hot dog brand, it's good, but then if you get the opposite of the spectrum,
Yeah.
you know, you're gonna get what you pay for is how it works.
Okay.
But yeah,
Well, that makes sense. When I brought this up to my wife, she was very skeptical because she's not a big fan of hot dogs, and she
mhm,
associates with those cheaper, less healthy ones. And
yeah.
sausage and stuff is fine. Bratwurst, that's a different situation. But but with regards to just your low quality hot dogs, the stuff that you would see mass. All right, I'm gonna walk away from that one. The it's dangerous when Artie gets quiet. The
I'm just being an attentive listener.
So the origin of putting it in a bun with the different dressings, relish, ketchup, mustard. Coney Island is a very popular venue or idea that you think of hot dogs. Another one is
Yeah,
like American baseball,
yeah,
ballparks and
yeah.
stuff.
That's
So
that would be one
go
of
ahead.
the other ideas is that it could have come
Mhm.
from baseball, but like I said, the what most people think is that the Coney Island is the most likely candidate to have made what we know as a hot dog today.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. I didn't really have much to follow up on that. Well, shall we jump into it? So, shall we? Whatever this is.
Let's do it.
So,
Let's
before
talk about our meat.
yeah, talk about our meat. I'm kind of ashamed of my meat in this recipe already. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, so basic tools: food processor. Already
Yep,
have one.
yep,
Thank you, mother-in-law. A large piping bag. Kind of harkens back to the macaroons. We did those, and then I have a question about this.
yeah,
In the piping bag, you asked for a 40 millimeter frosting tip.
yes,
Okay, so I was a little confused as to what the number means, because I never really got a 40 millimeter exact. I just chose a frosting tip that had a relatively large nozzle in order to accommodate the the meat. So, is there a
Mhm.
certain measurements? This is not going well. Is there a certain way to kind of make sure you have the right frosting tip?
Like a like a solid half inch.
Okay. Solid. Okay. Well, I is that this is so bad. Is that how tall the nozzle is or how big the hole is on the end of the tip?
It's the girth of the hole.
Okay.
We're not gonna get through
No, this is gonna be a rough episode.
this.
Let's do hot dogs, Dan. Sure, that sounds like fun, Artie.
Uh,
Okay. So, needless to say, make sure you have a frosting tip that can accommodate a large amount of meat to come through. All right, moving on. So the ingredients are a pound of chuck or shank meat. I'm assuming that's ground chuck. Is that what you mean by that?
yeah, yeah. If
Okay.
if you're not gonna ground it yourself, then yes, get ground.
Okay, cool. And then a pound of pork butt and shoulder. So you mix two animals there. You put cow and pig in there together.
I
Is that
did.
something you wanted to do or just came across or what?
I wanted to do it because of the fat content from the pig.
Mm,
I wanted it to make up for the chuck because the chuck is does have a lot of fat in it, but to make hot dogs you need a lot of fat
yeah.
because that's the glue that holds the meat and everything together.
Interesting. That actually may be something that comes up later with me because I actually purposely chose pretty lean chuck.
Well, I mean, if you got pork, it should have kind of helped.
Yeah.
Um, so again, this recipe was very clean, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, so you know,
Okay, got it. And then this was the weirdest. I've done a lot of weird recipes with you, but this was the weirdest item.
okay.
Collagen casings. The collagen casings, 24 to 26 millimeter
So
casings.
it was the sheep casings or the collagen.
Okay, I did the
Um,
collagen.
okay. I did too. I did both,
Ooh,
and we should not do collagen.
I
It's
concur.
it's because it's for smoking.
Okay,
I had no
got
idea.
it.
I learned
Okay,
something about so next time you
all right.
gotta use a sheep gut.
So then we got a quarter cup of onion, we got two garlic cloves, teaspoon of you get just a lot of spices here: paprika,
Yeah.
salt, mace. I've never, the only mace that I've heard of is the stuff you spray in attackers' faces or the ancient weapon.
Yeah.
That's all, that's
So
all I've ever known.
mace is which if you can't find mace, you can use nutmeg. So nutmeg is the seed of that plant, and mace is the fleshy stuff that surrounds the seed.
Oh, okay,
So their flavors are similar enough that you can use nutmeg if you can't find mace.
got it. Okay, got some mustard powder in there, some coriander, some MSG.
That's right.
That kind of has a negative connotation to it with regards to some cuisine.
Get out of
Um,
here.
Anything you want to add about that?
MSG is delicious. It's not gonna kill you. It's not bad for you. You're fine. Use it unless you're eating it by the spoonful.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Yeah,
You,
there's only a teaspoon in here and there's 2 pounds of meat. I
that's
think it probably could be.
that is literally the amount you use whenever you use it in any recipe. And if you like Chinese food,
Yeah.
guess what? You've eaten tons of MSG. You if you've ever gone to any fast food place, MSG baby. Any food you do not make at your house most likely has MSG in it.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Continuing down the spices, we have some brown sugar, some white pepper. Actually,
Mm,
that I was able to reuse the white pepper for the soup dumplings.
nice.
The soup dumplings had white pepper in there, and then some marjoram. Marjoram? Don't know what. I've never heard of this thing.
Close enough.
Okay.
It's a green herb. Marjoram.
Okay.
Marjoram.
Marjoram.
Marjoram. I mean,
Don't know.
I know it. We're gonna figure it out right now.
to the internets, and then half a cup of ice water.
Yes.
And that leads in nicely to an overall theme within this dish, this recipe. You constantly, literally, almost every single instruction piece say, put it back in the fridge,
Yep.
chill it, freeze it, put it back in the fridge. There's so many back and forth between a cooler temperature. Uh, and I was overall just curious why you're doing that. Is that part of the reason because of the fat, or
Yes.
like what's going on there?
Exactly. So what you're trying to do is prevent the fat from separating from the meat. So
Okay.
that's why you're always keeping it cold.
Okay.
Because so when you add the water in, it kind of helps. And as you probably saw, as you add the water in and mix everything together, it starts to become more gelatinous.
Yes.
And that's because that fat is still cold enough that you can work it, and the water kind of helps it all combined. Now, if that meat had gotten warm, you'd be adding water in there, and the fat would then leach off the meat and into the water, and it would have separated from the meat. So the whole point of it being cold all the time, everything being cold, is to keep all that cohesive.
Okay. And I kind of remember back to the aspic from the soup dumplings, with how it was important to make sure that you kept that temperature down. And I got in trouble with that. It
Yeah,
started to get too warm and it was too runny.
yeah,
And then by then it was just really hard to do the dumpling with the runny aspic in the middle. So that actually makes sense. I'm glad that I was able to connect those things.
yeah. Well done.
Thank you. So moving on, we start with the meat. We got to make the meat mixture, which is what you call. So
Yes.
we got a food processor bowl, and you specifically said take the bowl and the attachment, like the blade and all that, and put it
Yep.
in the freezer for an hour.
Yes.
And then again, I'm assuming that's part of the fat adhesion thing that you want to make sure.
Yep.
And then
Everything is for temperature control.
okay, cool, because we did that, and then about 30 minutes into that, cut the meat into cubes, which kind of seemed I did it anyway, which probably will be stupid,
Uh huh.
but it I cut ground chuck into inch cubes. I d I don't know if that was necessary, but if you give me instructions, Artie, I will do it.
No, you don't need to cut ground meat, Dan.
I did it anyway. You know what?
Just
I'm
for
proud of it.
just for future reference. If it is ground, you don't need to cut it into pieces that are small enough to be put in a machine that then will grind it.
Got it. Okay. Well, whatever. Moving on. And then, you again throw that back in the freezer or the fridge for about 30 minutes. Moving on, we go back to the food processor. This time we get it out of the fridge and we put the spices in. And
Yes.
I thought this was interesting where you literally combined all those spices, the onion and the garlic cloves,
Mhm.
and then turn it into a thick puree.
Yep.
The the processor that I have is fairly large, so it just kinda had that push it to the outside. I had to scoop it in the middle, then push
Uh-huh.
it to the outside just because there wasn't really it was too big of a basin, and it
Mhm.
was just kinda it was ducking under the blade or up against the wall. It wasn't
Uh-huh.
really getting pureed.
In that
Um,
case, I had the same issue, so I knew I would have the same issue. So once I
okay,
had all the meat and the right size, I just put it in a bowl, put the spices in, and hand kneaded everything with the water till it mixed together.
okay. The idea is to get as much of this spice around the meat as
Yes.
possible. Okay, okay,
Yep.
that makes sense. Okay. Then after we did that, the puree, put the chunks into the food processor and then pulse until the meat is half the size of a pea. Once you hit that button a couple times, everything is just a blob. There wasn't any differential identifier as to the size of the meat, if that makes sense.
Again, your meat was already ground.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure.
All of
That's
all of these instructions are for meat that is not ground.
Well, the pork wasn't ground. I mean, that got chopped up,
Oh,
but
well,
it
that's fine.
was
Whatever. It's
it was
okay.
indistinguishable from the chuck, though. Like, I couldn't tell if my pork was pea size or not.
Well, good. I mean,
But
that's what you want in the end. You want them to combined. That's the whole point.
I I
So,
assumed you just wanted it to be a mass,
yeah,
basically.
exactly.
Okay, got it.
A
And then the
mass of
next
meat.
instruction then the remove and place in the refrigerator again.
Mhm.
And then this next instructions you have highlighted or underlined, work quickly. Place the
Yes.
meat, spice mixture, and half the ice water. Originally, it was half a cup, so a quarter cup of ice water,
Yep.
and in a large bowl, and mix it by hand
Mhm.
quickly until it is fully combined.
Yes.
Place in the fridge and cover.
Mhm.
So we're just putting everything together here,
Yep.
right?
Yep. That's
Okay.
it.
Then we move on to the interesting part, making the hot dog. All right. Well, I had to go on to Amazon to order these collagen casings.
Okay.
Apparently, I ordered just one, but it was a 70-foot industrial collagen casing. I'm assuming this is like some kind of cartridge that is used for.
Well,
Uh,
that's a lot, buddy. I think you might
I
have might have overdid it.
might have been overcompensating. I'm sorry.
I
But
mean, it is an episode about your meat, so
this thing was completely shriveled up and shrank to about this big,
that sounds
and
like
it
it.
was it
Okay, it's a good day.
and it was all like compressed, and it was very brittle. And the instructions said,
You should
if
see a
it's
doctor.
brittle, I'm not gonna get through this. I'm not gonna get through. If it's brittle, put it
Yep.
in water
Uh-huh.
so that it apparently it's like those dinosaur sponge things that you used to get when you were a kid. You put it in water and it just grows to like 14 times its size.
I mean, I'm sure you think that, but
Okay. Long story short, I've got I, g- I get part of it, and it's like before you unshrink it, it's this long, and so I have to. I know I don't have that much meat to accommodate this long, so I cut the collagen a little bit. I kept I kept the tip that had the tie.
okay.
This is so bad. And so I then I put the meat and the tip in the bag, and then I start ins I start pushing the meat into the casing, and
Okay. Okay.
it's it sucks, man. It was not fun at all. This was super hard to do, and I can imagine this is best done by machine.
Yeah.
Like if I had the
Yeah.
attachment on
Yes. Yeah.
if I had the attachment on my um mixer,
Yes.
anything, because then I would have been able to, you know, have better control over the entire situation.
Yes. 100%.
Um, because what happens was, you're messing with the meat mixture, and that's fatty and greasy,
Mhm.
and then you're trying to handle a piping bag, and that's all plastic and slipping, and
Yep.
then the collagen, once it had to get that wet in order for it to be pliable,
Yep.
and then that was not cooperating, and it was a bunch of bad situations coming to a head in one
Yeah.
spot,
Yeah.
that it was very, very challenging. um and it's just it looks so wrong. It looks so wrong when you just have this really long tube of pink meat paste, and your wife is sitting there looking at you going, "What are you doing?" And so I was able to get two two tubes,
Okay.
and this is where I started making even more mistakes.
Okay.
So the instructions say, fill up the tube.
Mhm.
I went ahead and made 2 because I had to replace the bag. It was just so greasy and slippery that I wasn't really accomplishing anything. So
Mhm.
I had to regroup and try a second one.
Yeah.
So I cut that collagen tube, and then I tied that one off. That was a
Okay.
mistake
Yep.
because now both ends were tied.
Yep.
And I'll tell you why that's a mistake later if you don't know already. And then I started a second one.
Mhm.
So then I get going on that, and then about 3/4 of the way through that, it bursts. It was still too brittle. I don't think I had let it submerged in water long enough for the collagen
Yeah.
to whatever. And I think maybe like some of the pressure of me trying to manhandle this meat make sure that it stays
Mhm,
in the
mhm.
tube, and just because you want to worry about air bubbles. You want to make sure that you kind of have a nice long string. You don't want air bubbles. You can kind of chase those out if you want,
Yeah.
but I was trying to make sure I was keeping it as compact as possible. And that burst, I thought I could save it by twisting off a link, and then just from then on that would be out, but and then just it went downhill from there.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, or at the end of the tubing, I call it the tubing. um I only had a link of about 5. I
Yeah.
really did, because
Yeah.
it was and I got so frustrated that I was just like, screw it, and I just threw some of it away, and it was just it was not an ideal situation.
No.
So I had 5 links that looked decent. I took a
Yeah.
picture of it and all that, and we did some meme-ish things around the house just to how often do you have a links of sausage in your house? So
Right.
we were making fun of it.
Of course,
And
of
then
course.
like you do. And then I went to boil it. And as I put it into the boiler,
Mhm.
one of the ends that I tied. First of all, let me go back real quick. The reason there was a mistake to tie both ends. The reason it was a mistake to tie both ends, you want to have one end open so that when you're twisting the links,
Yep.
there's going to be a little pressure pushing back, and you
Mhm.
want that to be relieved. Otherwise, you're going to rupture. You're going to rupture an end. So, y-
Yes.
and you twist the links,
Yep, yep.
and so like you make them about what 6 to 8 inches is what you said.
On a good day, yeah.
Depends on how warm it is. And so I didn't, having it tied off on both ends. One of them was bad. So like I said, I was able to salvage 5 links
Yeah.
on one chain. Okay. So then I put that in in the boiling water. About 2 minutes into the boiling water, one of the junctions bursts. So now it looks like grayish poop is floating around in my boiling pot of water.
Yep.
And the other 4 links have just miraculously untied themselves. Like they un so I have about a 4-inch glob of grayish poop,
Yep.
and then I have literally like like this grayish pink snake coiling around inside the pot with a little bit of stuff just kind of out the end of it where it ruptured.
Yes. Uh, yep.
So at that point I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to get my kid to eat this because I'm not even going to eat this. It just doesn't. I mean, how do you serve this up? And so I believe this is the first ever complete failure I have ever had on the show.
Nice, nice.
Um, I apparently can't. I can't handle my meat, folks, when it comes to sausages and links and stuff. But it was It was an ordeal. It was an ordeal. Before I turn it over to you, I just want to say it's a pretty straightforward instructional and recipe situation.
Yeah.
Like everything makes sense if you just kind of look at it in your head, but the application is a completely different story.
Yes.
So, we didn't need it tonight. It went straight into the trash. I hate to waste 2 pounds of meat, especially in today's economic strife. But it wasn't edible. It wasn't edible, and we did our best. And if anybody out there does this recipe, please show us some success stories. All right, Artie, it's all you. What do you got?
All right. Clear throat here. So,
Here we go.
first problem. I discovered this after a little extra research. Collagen cases are for smoking. They're not for boiling. Same thing happened to me. You put it in the water and just pop, 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 pop.
Yep.
So, from start to finish, I cut all the meat up, grounded it, throw the spices in, mix it with the water, kneaded that till it was a nice meat jelly substance. That's what it is.
Yep.
Threw it in the fridge while it cooled down. I prepped the casings. I got two casings. So I got the sheep casing, which is apparently traditionally what you use, and the collagen casing. I thought you could use them
Okay.
both because I couldn't find any information to the contrary until after the explosion, until after my meat blew up everywhere. That being said, so I so I
See, it's so hard to talk about this.
so I slid the casings on the tip of the frosting gun I have because I tried using the bag. I tr-
It's not getting better.
tried I tried sliding it on the tip of the bag and the bag just wasn't working. So I have a frosting gun that's all hard plastic. So I used that, fill up this collagen thing. It just filled up like a I don't know, like a thing filling up.
It's so weird.
I don't know how to explain. It's just flat and wrinkly, and all of a sudden, it's just it's it's round and solid, you know. And that ends sexual education today, kids.
Oh my
So
god.
I got that one done, twisted all off, tied the ends off after I twisted everything off. Put that one to the side. Whew. And I and, and then I got the sheep casings. And this is I'm sorry, it's like handling a snotty condom. It is gross. So before you use these things, you have to soak them in water for about 30 minutes or an hour, and then you have to rinse water through the middle to clean it all out because
This is just the casing?
it's just the casing because it's
Oh,
cured, so you gotta get all the salt out of it.
okay.
So I did that, and then I'm putting it on, and again I had like enough to make 7 pounds worth of sausage, so I didn't do that. I cut it in half, tied the end off, and started slipping that over the tip, and proceeded to fill that with my meat substance. It doesn't get better.
You
It's
try to search for different words. It just doesn't.
just, it's just bad. It just sounds terrible. So I get the tubes filled with the meat. They're all twisted off. Get the water boiling. I throw the casings in there. First, I throw the collagen ones in, and then I throw the sheep ones in. I made about 5 or 6 links from the collagen, and I made
Mhm.
3 links from the casing because, like you, I got fed up with it. I was like, I'm done filling
Yeah.
these tubes with meat. I'm over it. I throw them in. A minute later, collagen ones start popping. Just pop, pop,
Was it
pop, pop.
same pot or did you have separate pots?
Same pot.
Okay.
So the collagen ones are popping. So, like you, brown turds coming out. Just a weird, like, nubbin hanging out the tip of the water. Cloudy, weird meat substance everywhere.
It's a
Those,
Nessie. You got
yeah,
a Loch
yeah,
Nessie.
yeah. It was like beep. So I got a little meat tip hanging out the top of the water. All the other links are popping. I think like 2 links survived, 3 links survived, but the ones in the sheep casing, perfect.
Really?
Yeah. So that's why we come back to their for smoking, because they're made
Mhm.
to wrap and shrink around the meat, because that's what happens when you smoke meat.
Okay.
Whereas the sheep casing are made for sausages.
Okay.
So that is our dilemma. That is where we messed up. Do
Got it.
not get the collagen. I'm taking that off of the recipe. Only use the sheep casings, because those are what work. That being said, those came out good. I am going to double all the spices though,
Really?
because it just wasn't very flavorful. So I developed this recipe after going through, like no joke, like 30 hot dog recipes, trying to see what the similarities were, how people were doing
Mhm.
it. And all these people making these hot dogs they're clearly making like a very bland hot dog, which is weird.
Mm.
So I'm gonna double the spice. There needs
Well,
to be
I
more
mean,
flavor there.
do you think maybe they are compensating with the condiments and the stuff they throw on top?
Maybe, but if you're just gonna eat a sausage and you don't want to do that, you still want it to be flavorful. You still want the flavor of the sausage to pair with your condiments.
Okay.
So I think if I double all the spices, you'll get it. There'll be a nice flavor. The meat flavor is good. The pork and the chuck mix really well together. There's a nice meat flavor, but then it's like that's it.
Mhm.
It's like here's your tube of meat. It tastes like just meat. Enjoy. So I don't want my tube of meat tasting like a tube of meat. I want it tasting flavorful and
That's fair.
delicious for
I
the
mean, what
joy of others.
it's 2022. Let's make these meat tubes taste better, people. Come
Right?
on.
Right? 2022, the year of the flavorful meat tube.
Well, I am. I'm not gonna lie. I am relieved that you and I both had similar experiences
Yes.
because this out of all the recipes we've done, obviously this was a massive failure.
Yeah. Oh
But
yeah. Oh yeah.
but I didn't feel very confident going into this one because it's almost like I could sense that not ambiguity, but that sense of like I don't know if this is 100% going to work
That
in the recipe,
uh-huh.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. You had an uneasiness.
Sure. It wasn't like I was thinking you were going to poison me or anything. It was just a matter of this doesn't feel 100% solid. I
I
don't know if
I
this is going to work out.
I I did hear that you said you didn't add the arsenic into there. That's a really key component, bud.
There was no arsenic. Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm such an idiot. I actually looked. I went to the recipe list. Like, I don't see.
Clip it.
It's been a long day, bud.
uh,
Maybe I could use a little bit of it. Just a little.
uh,
Oh, man.
good
So,
stuff.
can't believe I just fell for that. At the end of the day, do you think you would try this again?
Yes, I'm going to.
Really?
Yes, because it's not hard. It's not a hard recipe. It's not.
No.
The hard part is dealing with the casings. And now that we know we don't use a certain casing for this type of sausage, collagen is out because collagen is for smoking meat, kids. Bad jokes, dad jokes. Um, but once you have like a proper tool, and luckily I have like a frosting gun essentially, so it's
Yeah.
easier to put the casing on that and then shoot the meat out into the casing.
It never gets old.
That was it.
Well, and I would recommend if you have like a stand mixer, then if you can get the
Yeah,
attachment
get the
at a reasonable
attachment.
price.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get the attachment. Um, because once you have those tools, I naively thought we could do this in every man's version where you don't need a
Yeah.
bunch of you can't. You just can't.
No.
You need a certain tool to fill the sausage. You just do. It needs to have a long tip so you can put lots of casing on it.
I'm trying to keep composed here, man. I just can't.
I mean, it just is what it is.
God, my inner middle school sense of humor is just going crazy right now.
But that all being said, it was fun to make.
Sure.
I enjoyed the process.
Yeah.
So
I I would agree with that. I even though it was a massive failure, it was fun going down in flames.
yeah,
It
right?
really
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
It was
Like
and we were laughing about it the whole time.
yeah,
Weird stuff. This
yeah,
looks silly. This is
yeah,
this. Then you had a
yeah,
Nessie.
yeah. Like it wasn't a frustrating experience. It wasn't like we're making some big deal cake and a whole
Sure.
cake burns where you're just like, cool, I just wasted
Mhm.
hours and a bunch of ingredients. This, it's like, all right, my hot dog exploded. Okay. It was like 15 minutes of work and it looks funny. All right.
Sure. Yeah, there
So
wasn't a lot of prep work or anything.
yeah, yeah, there wasn't you didn't break your back getting everything ready for this thing.
No.
So get the right tool. get the attachment if you have a stand mixer, or you can literally get sausage guns off Amazon where you fill it's essentially what I have. Um, and they're like 20, $30. So if you want to make your sausage or hot dogs all the time,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, go for it. It's not a hard thing to do. This recipe is pretty straightforward. I'm gonna up the spices and redo it tomorrow before we release this, of course, because I want to dialed it in. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. And it's just like it's the whole time it's just a phallic joke after phallic joke after phallic joke.
A
You
lot of
know,
them.
it's just a good time. That's all.
Well, I don't. I mean, that's not much more to say about this
No.
before we get censored or anything. The 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 hot dogs themselves. Are you a big hot dog fan in general? Like,
I
do you like hot dogs
I
really?
like sausage.
Okay, I'm with you too. I think everybody thinks of these hot dogs when they're kids, and or they go to the ballpark or something.
Yeah.
If it's a cheap one, sure, when you're a kid,
Yeah.
cut them up and put them in mac and cheese, stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But now a good like a brat or a good seasoned sausage
Yeah.
that's got some oomph to it
Something that's
is more
something that is flavorful and good.
smoked stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I don't want a meat goop tube. That's not
Nope.
if it is light gray when it's done, I'm not into it. I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good.
that was a weird color. It was a really weird color.
Yeah. So, it
You
is
know what
what
it
it is.
looked like? It looked like browning meat before it was completely browned.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it looked like.
So and that's the other cool thing about using the sheep casing is that when you cook that, that browns.
Oh, okay.
So then that goes through to the meat too.
Okay.
So whereas that other casing, the collagen one is just it just sucks.
It looks like you have a bunch of meat packed into like a surgical glove.
Pretty
It's really
much, yeah, it
like a
does.
latex glove.
It looks like
It's just weird.
you're just being a weirdo for no reason.
There was tons of being a weirdo. Yes.
You're like, I'm gonna put all this meat in this plastic looking tube. At least the sheep casings look like sausages. That just looks weird. It's like some medical device that you're gonna have to do something with. Excuse me, sir. Turn and cough. We have the inflated tube.
We have the meats.
We've got the meat, sir. Please turn and cough.
Oh, Arby's. That's not how we meant for your motto to go. All right.
I mean, Arby's.
All right. You want to tell the people where to find us?
I guess I could do that. So, as always,
We'll have one.
as always, there will be video on YouTube on
Yes.
our Hot and Hotter channel. You can find us at all the social media places. I am It's Arti. He is a Poop Shizzle on the Twitters and all that jazz. You can find Hot and Hotter on Instagram, Twitter as well, and TikTok too. So we're all the places. We have all the things. The contents are there. Just go look at them. Go watch them. Go listen to us. And our
And
podcast is everywhere you listen to podcasts.
there's going to be a mass influx of TikToks from this this particular
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot. There's quite a few.
Well, thank you again for everybody that's listening. This is kind of, I guess, a holiday special. Would you call that a
Yeah.
holiday
Yeah.
special?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to go out a little bit before the 4th. I think I'm going to release this one a couple days early so people can actually use it if they want to on the 4th,
Okay.
recipe wise.
Then, yeah. So if you guys are out for the summer having a good time this weekend, or I guess this Monday is the 4th of July or whatever, be safe.
Yep.
Do it smart. Don't be stupid, especially if you're in some of the drier areas. Be careful with your fires. Be careful with your camping and all that stuff. We don't need any major issues.
Yeah, most of California's already burned down. We don't need it anymore. Let's calm down, everybody.
But yeah, thank you very much for listening. I think that's gonna do it for me, bud.
That is, and you guys, as always, keep cooking. Bye.
Yeah.